Hello and welcome to the first video of Cobra Kai High, and the first topic of discussion is the man on the screen, Robby Keaton. I believe that this character, especially within the Cobra Kai universe, gets too much hate, and the reason why I believe this is because there's so many times, and I'm going to pull up some comments during this video as well, which you'll probably see some right now, about how Robby is this evil son of a bitch that's ungrateful, he's playing the victim card, and all these types of things that really grind my gears in a sense of Family Guy references, if you get that. Because I truly believe people don't understand the story of Robby, and to get to this bottom of the story of Robby, we need to start with it at the beginning, which is his dad, Johnny Lawrence, the main character of the show, let's say. So, when it comes to Johnny Lawrence and Robby's relationship, we find out that obviously Robby hasn't had a proper relationship with his dad for over 16 years. You know that he's been in and out every now and then because you see, little photos that he has of like Robby at football games, and you see within one of the episodes that Robby used to draw pictures of Johnny and Shannon and them all being one big happy family. And what I think people give Johnny too much credit for is being a good dad. He's reaching out now, he's trying all this stuff, and he's really close with Miguel, and Miguel knows more of the story than Robby does. It's like that scene when he's in the diner or like the drinking area where they were having the food and they're talking about the hospital scene. That shouldn't have been Miguel, that should have been Robby, but that's the whole point of Robby's story. And the fact that Johnny, on multiple occasions, is shown to be trying and is trying to find the right way to balance his life because he's never had it before because he was raised by Kreese. And, his excuse that I think is a horrible excuse, I've heard one of my own parents use this excuse, I never had a dad, I don't know what it's like to be like one, which I think is on a horrible excuse for treating Robby the way as Johnny really does. And people seem to forget that it's a show. So we see Johnny on multiple occasions try and reach out to Robby. He shows up to the door, he's not there, he's got a skateboard in hand, ready to try and mend it, but then he loses the rag when he finds out that Robby had moved in with the LaRussos, which, understandably so, like any dad would be, but at the same time, instead of actually going to Daniel or Robby and talking to them, he decides to get drunk and just be an idiot, really. Then on top of that, people seem to forget that Robby doesn't see these parts. Like, we were watching a show, remember? So a lot of people don't know what side of whose story in the show because it's all about the matter of perspective, and that's what the show does really well. It's trying to show you the perspective of Johnny trying to better his life now, but at the same time it's trying to remind people that Johnny's got a son, and that's why one of the biggest issues I have with Johnny is that it is constantly shown that he will choose Miguel over Robby. And it's not because he doesn't love Robby, it's simply because Robby is a reminder of who he was in the past. And instead of dealing with it and becoming a mature and better person about that, he decides to go with the easier option and be that for another kid, which is obviously a good thing on Johnny's end. He's doing a really good job on that. But at the same time, he should be trying to do that with his own son. And it kind of upsets me that everyone makes these excuses for his horrible choices because, we know he's trying to be better. It doesn't matter if you're trying to be better. As the wise Master Yoda once said, is do or do not, there is no try. And a lot of situations in life, you either do, you don't. There is no trying within this. And it's especially when it comes to a child, especially like Robby, who's very vulnerable. And a lot of people tend to think he plays the victim card, which I get really annoyed at because he's not playing the victim card. He is a victim in this story. And a lot of people tend to think that, but he's making it, no one's there for him. And it's like, but who truly is there? Which gets me on to my next point is Daniel. Everybody loves Daniel. Me, myself, I love Daniel's character as well. But even from the minute Robby and Daniel are interacting, even in the first season alone, he already disowns Robby. So he shows Robby in that moment in time that if anything was to come to butt heads with they two, he's ready to drop Robby at a second notice. Because it's not only one time he does it twice. He does it within season 1, and then he does it again in season 2, where Daniel obviously gets very upset that he finds out that Robby's Johnny's son, so he kicks him out, and then he eventually, comes back to him at the end of the season 1 to help him because obviously he sees that he's fighting his dad's students, and he's clearly got his own issues with his dad, which is screwed. And I hate that, and especially because, you get to see this nice progression where Daniel's teaching him things about, building things, and he's teaching him Mr. Miyagi lessons and things. And obviously, you see Johnny getting jealous of this dynamic. They're in the shop. They're in the shop where they're getting all the building supplies, and as Robby points out within that exact same episode, and just a bit later in that scene, is that Johnny cares more about the rivalry between him and Daniel than he does about his own kid. He's like, so you're going to keep torturing me by being with that guy? Obviously, he uses a swear word, and obviously this is YouTube now, so you can't swear. So I'm just paraphrasing it in a different way. And it's true, because when Robby comes out, the first thing he says to Daniel is like, he cares, as usual, he cares more about his stupid rivalry with you instead of being a dad to me, basically. It's not the exact same phrasing, but that's basically the gist of that part of the story. And that's what I find so upsetting about Robby's character, is that his actual dad is being able to just get away with all this stuff in his perspective and his opinion, and it's unfair. And it is. And then Daniel comes along and acts like this Mr. Miyagi dad type to him, like how Daniel had. But then people also forget, in that exact same season 2, not even that much later, near the end of season 2, it's this last school, it's the episode before the last school episode, before the big school fight. Daniel blatantly drops Robby again, simply because Samantha, his daughter, chose to not go home. And then Robby gets the blame for it, and then he gets chucked aside again for the second time by Daniel. You see it in his eyes within that scene. He is hurt. He wants to cry, but he knows he can't because, well, Robby's been shown to be a tough character on the show. He was the bad boy originally, which is one of the things that I also hate, is that everybody's like, he was always destined to be this way. He was a criminal at the beginning. He wasn't the best person in the beginning. But that people forget. His mum was constantly leaving him, and his dad was never there. You end up falling in with the wrong crowds. It's just what happens as a part of life. And people seem to forget that a lot of the time. Or they say they don't, but then they're so, righteousness and high pride about it, which really grinds my gears a lot of the time as well. And so, moving on from Daniel, it goes on to Sam. And, everybody's like, they were a cute couple. They were really, they're very popularly shipped with one another, which I can understand. I did like the dynamic between Robby and Sam, but also people seem to forget Sam is one of these people that gets away with fucking murder. Sorry, this is a bit further in the video, so I'm just going to swear. But legit, Sam on multiple occasions says she's not going to get involved with the fighting. She's friends with everyone. She's dating Miguel at this point. She thinks she's above it all, really. And then, obviously, throughout the season 1, you find, Miguel starts to become a douche canoe with Sam, and, eventually they break up. And then, so it's Sam and Robby. They're training together. She helps him out by telling Daniel his living situation, telling Daniel Robby's living situation. But also, people also forget Sam is doing this while saying she doesn't have feelings for Robby, and she's saying that any friend would do it, which is clearly not the case. I know a lot of people that would never do that for a friend, and that's just how people are. And so clearly it's setting up the whole dynamic of them liking one another, and eventually, yes, they end up dating. And a lot of things that I've seen on this is one thing that I get annoyed at. They go, Robby pursued Sam first. Yes, he did originally. When he first met Sam, he was interested. So he broke her out. But the minute he found out she had a boyfriend, he was respectful of that. He was even shown in the show to go to shake Miguel's hand. And what does Miguel do? Slap it away and try to attack him, and then it ends up accidentally punching Sam in the face, which is so wrong in many levels. And then he still plays the victim, which really annoys me when people say Robby plays the victim, when I've seen Miguel act the victim way more than Robby does. So that's for a later topic in the video anyway. So let me keep continuing on with what I was trying to say originally anyway. So then we also see Sam being very judgmental towards Tori, being very judgmental towards anybody that doesn't really do what she thinks is right. Like how Daniel is. She's a hothead. She's a lot similar in Daniel in that regard. So we see, obviously, her and Tori eventually button heads because Tori's dating Miguel and Sam's dating Robby. And instead of being the mature person in the situation and going, okay, like how she's supposed to be anyway, but they try to portray her as, she starts to make it this sort of rivalry between her and Tori, and they have to butt heads all the time. And she starts it. Like, she is the one that starts it, just how, like, Miguel is the one who starts it with Robby. And a lot of people tend to think it's the other way around, which I really get annoyed at as well. Because Sam, when it comes to Robby, will judge anything he does if she doesn't like it. If it doesn't go the way she thinks he should be, he gets told off. And that's why when it comes to the fighting scene with in the last episode of season 2, really annoys me is that when he by accidentally kicks Miguel off the balcony, Sam goes, Robby, what did you do? With a judgmental voice. And because Robby's scared, he's done something that he knows could ruin his life. He runs, just like anybody in that situation would. And if you say otherwise, you're lying to yourself. Because no one in their right mind would stay somewhere where something like that went down if you know that it's going to ruin the rest of your future. So, moving on to Amanda, because I think Amanda should be in between the next two subjects, because I think people need to realise, yes, Amanda was very nice and caring for Robby. She is the one that's probably shown the most care to Robby, other than Daniel, in a sense of she hasn't written him off at all, though. Like, that's the difference between her and Daniel. It's like Amanda's the one person, or one woman, per se, in Robby's life that is actually stuck by him and stuck by the way he is and accepts his past and knows that he can move forward from it. But everybody else around him is judging him on what he's done or what he's went through and blaming him for it. And it's a really annoying thing where I can't really say too much on the Amanda subject because Amanda's not been shown being a horrible person to Robby. She's actually probably the only people in the show that is always constantly nice to Robby. Yeah, I know that people see it as Robby's betrayed Amanda's trust and stuff because of what he's going on to do now, but at the same time, people have got to realise there's a lot of other factors that have factored into this. And the two next topics are probably the most that is also factored into this. Is Miguel in the balcony. I'm going to conjoin these two because at the same time, they're both a part of the same story. So when it comes to Robby and Miguel's dynamic, Robby hasn't a clue who the hell Miguel is. All he sees is his dad hugging another kid. And it makes him upset, rightly so, because he's like, who's this kid that my dad's spending time with? Because he doesn't have that time for me, so why is he having this amount of time with a kid that I don't know, I've never heard of, and he's never told me about? You know? And when it comes to this sort of subject, it's a tricky one, because Miguel starts this feud, no word of a lie. Like, I hate people that say that Robby started it simply because he held a girl's hand walking down a hill. If you're that insecure as a person and in your relationship that a guy can't hold your girl's hand when they're walking down a hill to make sure she doesn't fall, that is an immaturity, and that's what people also forget. These guys are teenagers. They're not going to act like mature adults within a situation. But people also forget that Miguel starts this. Miguel's the one that starts the feud. He's the one that also uses Robby's hurt shoulder to his advantage in the All Valley tournament in the first season. And then before the fight breaks out in the last episode of season 2, you see Miguel full on tackle Robby for pinning Tori to a locker and holding Sam back, saying, hey, we can sort this out. And everybody's excuse is that he didn't know, he just saw Robby hurting Tori. How was Robby hurting Tori in the slightest? All he done was have a hand on her chest to tell her, don't move. That is all that was. Any reasonable person would go, oh, he's restraining them from fighting. Because also, it's shown in that same episode that Miguel hears the tannoid and what Tori says. So he knows that this is going to go down. So instead of actually thinking, oh, yeah, I'm with Tori and Robby's with Sam, we're going to be trying to do the same thing in this situation where we're going to go run and try break it up. Instead, he takes that as an opportunity to attack Robby for no apparent reason, because there is no reason to attack Robby in that scene. He kicks a Cobra Kai for trying to attack him for having Tori pinned up against the wall, which is normal to do if someone attacks you if you're trying to sort a situation out, because that's all he could do in that situation. And then throughout this whole fight scene, you see Miguel on so many times randomly attack Robby when he clearly knows he's doing the exact same thing as he's doing, and he gets all of his friends to jump into the fight. There's times where Miguel's getting a break because Robby's fighting another like 2 or 3 Cobra Kai on a stair set, and then everyone goes, oh, but Miguel is such this like humble and great character. And I hate the consensus of Miguel's character, because a lot of the time what I see Miguel's character is what a lot of people would call a Mary Sue in a lot of the situations. Yeah, you see his struggles, you know, he went from the bullied kid and, you know, to like the badass and stuff, But then it becomes a right dick. And then, they go, oh, but it's the teaching of Cobra Kai, it makes you that way. And it's like, yeah, but still, doesn't give you a right off for it. Like, up until this point, Miguel's been an asshole to Sam. He's accidentally hit her. He's done all these horrible things. And people give him a pass because he's the next Karate Kid, which is also another thing that I'm bringing up later on in this video. But then, obviously, talking about this fight scene, we have to talk about the balcony. And the thing that I hate most about this is that people go, Robby is not redeemable because of this one accident that could have happened to either side. Robby could have fell off that balcony. It didn't. Miguel just got unlucky and slipped with his feet because he didn't have enough balance. And yes, what people are going to say is that, but the only reason why Robby is in the wrong here is because he attacked after Miguel said, right, let's just leave it. But people seem to forget this, especially when it comes to the scene, which is very vital to Robby's character growth, is that up until this point, so many people have been hurting him. This is right after Daniel disowns him for the second time. And he's hurt. And then he also finds out on that exact same day, his girlfriend cheated on him. And instead of being angry and letting what was about to go down happen, he stops it, even though he knows that he's hurt. That shows you that Robby is a good character at heart. Like, I've heard one of my favourite YouTubers who do topics on Cobra Kai, The Chosen One, explain this very topic that, not just him, like a few others as well. He's a Cobra Kai in blood, but he's got a Miyagi-Do heart, which is true, because even though he's had one of the worst days, one of the worst 2 days of his life, the only plus side was him getting somewhat closer to Johnny for one day, and that's the only one good scene they ever share in Robby's perspective, because it's also true. Like, this is the only scene we actually see them not butting heads. Is that Miguel, through that whole fight, was pointlessly attacking him constantly. And then, people go, but then Robby started the insults by saying, you can't cheat your way out of this. Which, people need to remember, every other encounter up until this point, Miguel has used some dirty tricks in the book to win against Robby at the All Valley tournament. And then, instead of ignoring it and just continuing on with the fight, Miguel then does even worse. He goes, do you like that move? Your father taught me that. And then in Robby's mind, he remembers that party. He saw that Sam was drunk. So he just puts two and two together. Like, they kissed at the party. Sam was drunk. Miguel took advantage. And that makes sense, because anybody in their right mind, if they found out that their girlfriend was drunk and a guy that was sober, because it's shown that Miguel was drinking, but he wasn't drinking heavily, so he would have been still sober, kissed his girl. And that makes logical sense. And instead, when Robby calls him out for that, he goes, then why did that happen? He goes, because she loves me more. Remember this as well. When people say Robby was a bad boyfriend for not telling Sam that he stole Miguel returned the Medal of Honor, it's true. Miguel returned the Medal of Honor to get in Sam's good books, and that is obviously going to put someone in a teenage state into insecurity. That's how a teenage mind works, because he's like, I've just got with this girl after denying her feelings for one another, and now her ex is showing up being like, yo, I'm trying to earn brownie points by returning this. Because he's only returning it because he thinks it's wrong what happened in Daniel's dojo, but it's only because he cares for Sam. If he never had been dating Sam at that time, he wouldn't have cared, because it's shown him many times as well. He does not know Daniel, and the slightest. All he knows about Daniel is the stuff Johnny's told him. So why would he like Daniel, and why would he care what happened to Daniel or Daniel's dojo if he doesn't care, if he doesn't like Daniel from what he's been told? It's a perspective thing. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people forget this. So when he finally gives up, Miguel doesn't give up, but he says, like, this should be the end of it. Robby is that in anger and so in his emotion at this point, he doesn't think clearly and he attacks again, because why would you believe anybody that's been doing all this horrible stuff to you for ages and ages, and now, because he's the one that's got the upper hand, he's like, oh no, now it's on my terms, so now we don't have to do this. He's not going to listen to that. He loses his temper, he kicks Miguel, and it's an accident. You see Miguel's leg slip. If he hadn't slipped during that point, he wouldn't have fallen off the balcony. And also, it's a show. They added it for drama. And when he falls, you see the instant shock and regret in Robby's face going, what did I do? I never started this fight, but I finished it. And that's another thing that I'm going to talk about later on in the video. is that this is the pivotal moment for Robby joining Cobra Kai like it does in season 3, and why people don't understand the relationship between him and Tori and Kreese. The reason why those are able to connect with one another, because a lot of people thought it was horrible that Tori wouldn't visit Miguel in the hospital, and Sam would, and things like that, right? But this is one of the things that I need to get off my chest, especially with about this. People forget that Tori feels responsible. She says so later on in that season 3 when Robby's in the dojo. She feels bad because she knows it's her fault for attacking, right? And as much as you hate Kreese, he's a bit of a douche canoe, and he's a manipulator, and the way he sees the world's a bit crooked. But at the same time, people need to realize we saw his backstory. We know why it's like that. It doesn't mean it's right, but at the same time, he's not been able to get past that because his life has constantly been like that. Even after losing the tournament and stuff, he went through a lot of stuff, and you see that. And that's why eventually Johnny says Kreese deserves a second chance. But the pivotal thing for me is when Robby's in juvie, right? After Daniel had sat down with him and talked to him, and everybody goes, Daniel was trying to do the right thing in that situation. He was trying to get him less jail time, less juvie time. He was trying to be a better person and be a positive influence on Robby. That is true. But at the same time, you forget Robby has been on the run from this point for we don't know how long, because time skips. Like, that's why Robby's got the short hair and, he's barely scraping by, and, he looks horrible. Frankly, he looks like he's malnourished. He's under everything. Like, the whole world's against him now because he by accidentally done something to a fellow rival in a fight that he did not mean. And people say that he doesn't take responsibility for it because later on, when he gets out of juvie, he attacks Miguel again. But people forget, when he was sat down talking to Daniel in this scene, he was taking responsibility. He was like, no, you're right, I can't change. Because this is the first conversation him and Daniel have had since he said that to Robby, saying that he's never going to change. He's just going to end up like, if he wants to end up like his dad, then so be it, sort of thing. Where Robby never wanted to be like his dad. He never wanted to go down the Cobra Kai route. But everyone in his life is pushing him towards it. Shannon and Johnny pushed him away. Like, Shannon's dynamic with Robby is shown so many times where his mum just doesn't care. And she's dating too many guys. And then she eventually goes to rehab and she's saying she's getting better and stuff, which is true. I'll give her that. But remember, now it's just leaving Robby on his own. Because when people say, oh, Robby's just playing a victim within this situation when it comes to Daniel betraying him, think about it. We've seen what Daniel's been doing and why he's doing it. So we know that that's the reason. Robby doesn't. He's been on the run. He doesn't even know why Daniel would want anything to do with him. Because think about it. He has done something bad like his dad did. And that's why he says, no, I can't change. And then obviously Daniel goes on about explaining how he's going to help him and all these sort of things. And yes, I blame the police on this. They came in way too early for Daniel to fully explain it to Robby. But then all Robby sees is that Daniel's talked to him the whole time to keep him there, so when the police arrive, that they would get him. And that's the betrayal that Robby sees. And a lot of people don't think that's what it is. They just see it as him, oh, he's just jumping to conclusions. When you're in a situation like that after something so horrifically damaging to someone else's body like Robby has been, and he done it on accident, and then, he's trying to find the best way to deal with it because he's never known how to deal with these things because he never got taught anything by his parents because they were never there. So he sees it as a betrayal. So then that leads up into the juvie. And when he's in juvie, all that keeps happening to him is life just keeps beating him down even more. He's getting battered by Sean and his goons every day. He's getting harassed by them every day. And then you see Johnny moaning about, oh, how could this have happened to Miguel and Robby? I just want to make it right. His friend from Cobra Kai, who's changed his life and became a better person, who's quite in the show quite frequently, makes an appointment so Johnny could see him, even though he shouldn't be allowed to, simply because of what he had done to Kyler in the first season, because he was beating up Miguel, which shows Johnny is a decent person when he needs to be. But at the same time, it shows that Johnny, obviously due to the conflict within him, and Miguel's gran begging him to stay, which even though she begged him to stay, the fact that he was awake should have Johnny should have turned around at that point and was like, trust me, I care about Miguel just as much as you used to. He's awake. It's good. My other son needs me now. He's not got anyone, and he's stuck in juvie, and I'm really worried or concerned about what's going on there. But instead, he just breaks and gives in again because he's going, Miguel's the easier option because I'm already here. And then that's when you see Robby's, I would say, second final break within that season. He goes, I told you, I knew he wasn't coming. And then he goes away. Where a lot of people don't see it that way. They see this as like the third before the second and the last break. But I see this as the the second last break because Robby is like, well, I've been chosen over and again. And then Sean uses that to his advantage and then abuses Robby some more. And then obviously this is when it leads into Kreese coming in, and Kreese is like, yo, how's it going? And he's like, what the hell? And you see him being standoffish. He knows Kreese is bad news. He knows that Kreese can be a douche. But what he sees is a guy genuinely caring for him when he's in juvie, because Kreese tells him a story about the Vidal thing. But that's the whole point. That's a narrative-driven part of the going into this season 4 that we're all very excited for, is that Kreese knows Robby won't let that happen again. He knows that he will never allow something like that to happen to himself once again, because it's unfair and he doesn't want to lose, and he doesn't want to lose everyone, or how he feels that he's lost everyone. And that's what I'm saying. And when Kreese tells him the story about his dad and then goes on to, the Miyagi-Do way works, but this is the real life, kid. You've got to learn how to strike first. That is the most pivotal moment in Robby's story during this season, because it's when he finally gets the upper hand on Sean, and then they gain mutual respect. And that's what makes him believe that Kreese cares, because he's like, well, Kreese is the one that came to visit me without any pre-warning or any real logical reason to. He's the first one to say to Robby, from what I heard, you were just trying to break up that fight, and he has attacked you, which is true. Which clearly Tori must have told Kreese what happened after the whole thing went down, because obviously he would have been curious on how it went down. And that's what obviously leads into the next scene, where it's Robby and Tori, where it comes to they bump into each other. Robby gets defensive and goes for like the whole attack approach, and she says, on you go, they'll send you straight back to juvie. And she takes a big deep breath, and that deep breath is an amazing part of storytelling that people miss out on, and why I think the dynamic between Robby and Tori is going to play it completely different from what everyone else is expecting. That shows that Tori respects and fears Robby because she knows that he is willing to do it. Not to attack, but to defend himself if she was to attack him. And no one else in the show, even Sam for this, like the majority of this part, has been scared of Tori. So she is taken aback by the way he's acting towards her. She's like, I've never had to deal with someone like you before. Like, she's had the abusive, guy that runs the apartments, but she's never had someone who's willing to defend themselves against her or go up against her and fight her. And that's what takes her back. And that's what she also respects Robby. Like, you even see that slight hint in season 2 when he pins Tori. She could have easily attacked him for it, but she doesn't. She stays there. So clearly there's this unpronounced respect between one another, even though they don't know about it yet. And that's when obviously it comes to the part of we're the same. It's like, you started the fight, but you finished it. And that's why people also don't understand, is that Robby finishes it because he doesn't want it to continue. He's sick and tired of the bullshit that he's been going through up till this point. Everything's went wrong. Kreese has been trying to get Robby from the minute he found out Robby was Johnny's son. And Johnny's ignored every single time when Kreese talks about me. Especially the most important scene within that is that Johnny goes, when our boy's back up on our feet, we'll get him back. And the first thing Johnny goes is, don't go anywhere near Miguel. Which then puts in the motion of Kreese going to juvie to get Robby and to get Robby on his side, because he knows that Robby is never, ever anyone's first choice. He's discardable in their eyes. He's chucked to the side like he's nothing. Daniel chucks him aside when he doesn't do something he doesn't like. Johnny's just never been there. And anytime Kreese tries to tell Johnny to be a better dad, which is funny because Kreese is meant to be the psychopath, is the only one that's genuinely shown that he wants to get Robby and he cares for Robby in this weird sort of granddad sort of like role. And that's when obviously, near the end, Tori goes, she cheated on you, and it shows that Robbie was a decent boyfriend and he was he trusted people, because he even defended Sam within that scene. Where when you see Miguel and Tori have those sort of interactions, Miguel never defends Sam. He just goes along with Tori because it's easier that way. Where Robbie is shown to be standoffish and be like, no, you're wrong. And then that is when I know that the next scene is the pivotal breaking point. He goes back to Miyagi-Do to go see Sam. He sees her and Miguel cuddled up with one another, looking like they're about to kiss. And anybody in the right mind, after coming into that and seeing all the stuff that Sam was doing for Miguel whilst he was away, would put that together, because why would they be so close? Why would they be doing all these things if she's meant to be with Robbie? And then, you know, obviously Robbie gets annoyed that she stopped writing, and then her excuse was, you never wrote back. And then his response to that is, well, it's kind of hard to do that when I'm getting my face busted in. She's like, I didn't know. And he's like, you wouldn't care if you did know. And this is when a lot of people go, oh, but Sam would have cared if she knew. It's been shown on multiple occasions that Sam does not care what happens to people. Like, she is totally up for destroying Tori and watching Tori have a horrible life because she sees her as a horrible person. One of the most pretentious and uptight things I've ever heard come out of a character's mouth is everybody's got a sob story. Doesn't give them the right to be a bully, right? That is one of the worst ideologies and perspectives to have in any day and age, because people seem to forget they're nothing different from one another. We all react and respond in different ways. Yes, we might think differently, we might be more mature than others, but that doesn't mean we're better than anyone, doesn't mean we're above anyone. She seems to forget that could have been her, that could have happened to her, but she's lived a pretty privileged life up at this point. Daniel's quite expensive and rich now, he's got all this good stuff, he doesn't even resemble his old self where he was more happy with nothing. Now he's happy with himself and he's more balanced, but he's also more judgmental and he's more about his nice living life than Johnny. You see, Johnny is Daniel from the first movie in this. He's poor, he doesn't have a lot to his name, you know, he's struggling. That's why he opens Cobra Kai again and things like that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like Sam gets this pass that I hate, because she is probably the worst character on the show when it comes to characters, because she is just shown to be a judgmental asshole or a person that thinks she's above people. She thinks that everybody should just get on and just ignore one another at first, and then, you know, she becomes a fighter, and then she's one of the main reasons for the conflict, after saying that she didn't want the drama and she didn't want the fighting, but she's constantly going out of her way and making that stuff happen, and that's what annoys me the most. And then to say something like that to someone like Tori, that her mum's sick, she's working constantly to try make sure that they can survive with her little brother, and then the creepy landlord, and then Kreese having to be the one to protect her from that, to get her back. Think about how screwed up of a life she must have had. Like, think about it logically. There's no reason or otherwise to think that she's just an evil psychopath, because a psychopath doesn't care about anyone. She clearly cares about her family, and it's shown obviously in season 3, and looks like season 4. She cares for Robby, so she cared for Miguel, so she can care. So that is not a psychopath. A psychopath, the definition of a psychopath, at least nowadays, is someone who doesn't care about anyone, doesn't care about family, doesn't care about friends, doesn't care about children. She's shown on many occasions to show that she cares. She's made a lot of bad decisions and she does act a bit crazy, but people forget that's how you have to survive when you grow up in an environment like that. People look at people like in the ghetto, right? This is Tori and Robby come from a ghetto in a sense. It might not look like one, but that's what it's meant to represent. They come from more bad environments where they've had to fend for themselves. They have to fight for themselves. They need to learn how to survive on their own. And in those sort of places, I've grew up in a similar place where I live, it's screwed. There's a lot of horrible and messed up stuff that goes down. And because of that, you become a more aggressive, abusive, and violent person because of your surroundings are like that. And it's the only way you can do anything to survive during that. And that's how, obviously, their characters mold so well together. And that's why I hate Sam's thing, because it doesn't just go against Tori when she says that. It's going against the person she's supposed to love and be in a relationship at this point with, who's Robby. And we all know that they were Tori and Robby were rebounds. You know that they truly wanted to be with one another, which is true. And that's the most mucked up part. Think about that. Knowing that you want to be with someone else, but you choose to be with the one that is with you at that moment because you don't like what the other one's doing. No matter what situation you are, no matter how much of a mature adult you think that you are, that is not a mature thing to do because that's messed up. Because then those people truly have those feelings for you. And if you're able to be ripped away so easily, you're going to hurt that person. And that's messed up. And I don't agree with that in the slightest. And that's one of my biggest issues with Sam. So then my next point of conjuncture is the things that I've been seeing recently, which really annoy me, is that there's fully grown adults out there saying Robby should be slapped, should be kicked about, should be put in his place because he decides to join Cobra Kai and him and Tori gets closer and they find out all these things and he gets closer with Kreese. And so in the season 4 trailer, you see Robby teaching the Cobra Kai's Miyagi-Do. And there's a lot of people that just didn't really say much, but there's also a lot of people out there that says he should be bitch slapped, he should be attacked, he's being highly dishonorable, he's clearly the villain. He's not the villain. That's the whole point of Robby's story and what I see him going forward as. A lot of people have noticed the similarities to him being Anakin 2.0. I also see him as a character with another TV show that I don't know if Cobra Kai fans watch that type of show, but The Vampire Diaries. He's the Damon character, I'd say. And a lot of people say that Damon was a horrible manipulating douche canoe, and he met a girl, and because of that girl, he became a better person. But people also tend to forget, it's shown on multiple occasions throughout that show that he done the right thing because he wanted to. He doesn't go near Stefan because Lexi tells him. Yes, he does so much other horrible stuff. And it doesn't... And in other people's eyes, he doesn't make up for all the horrible things he's done. And this is the same with Robby. He's a character that they're trying to show people because it's not a character. It's a real life interpretation of a person that has went through this and has done these things or has accidentally done things similar to this. And that's the biggest heartbreak for me, is that they're trying to teach people to stop being so ignorant to people who go through this and stop acting like they're above them because they don't know the situations. They've never been in them themselves. And they shouldn't be thinking that they would do something different because you can't say that until you're in that position. And that's my biggest issue with a lot of these people. It's not a big dishonor to Miyagi. Yes, Mr. Miyagi himself, he might have not even seen it as a dishonor because no one knows what Mr. Miyagi would do because he's not in the show because sadly the actor passed away. Mr. Miyagi might have not seen it as a portrayal. He might have seen it from a different perspective because Mr. Miyagi was good at that. He knew that Daniel was a hothead. He even had a fallout with Daniel, but he still made up with him. And that's what I'm saying. At this point, Mr. Miyagi would be a lot more older, so he wouldn't see it the same way he used to. You never know. He could have understood why Robby would have done it, but he would have been the one to be able to bring Robby back by teaching him the reason why he shouldn't be doing that. And that's what I'm saying, is that people see this 17-year-old guy in a show, mind you, who's a teenager, who they think a fully grown man should beat the shit out of because of a choice he's making, because everything else in life is determined, this is who you are. So instead of fighting it like he was, he's got to the point of, why should I fight it? That's all they're going to think of me. I don't think I can change now, because that's all. The only thing he's ever told throughout the whole show is that you're never going to change. You're just like your dad, you know? And he's this scapegoat for everyone else. He's the guy that gets blamed for everything, which really annoys me, because Robby is a great character. Robby is the character that I truly believe, I might be wrong, but in my opinion, they're setting up to be the next Karate Kid. Because if you think about the way they tell their stories, it's always the unexpected. Everybody expected Robby to eventually turn to the dark side. But if they do the parallels with Anakin, Anakin was also the one to bring the balance to the Force. He was the one that destroyed Sidious. Yes, you know, they've done, you know, another 3 movies after that, but nobody talks about them because nobody likes them, and that's where they should stay, right? But that's what I'm saying. Even within that story, he becomes the good guy. Like I said, he was similar to Damon. He's legit shown to be the better brother by the end of the show. And a lot of people disagreed with that ending because they liked Stefan because they were shown him first. So they believe he's the main protagonist, which I think people need to realize. I've been watching TV shows and movies for years, and I'm not that old, but I've watched all the classics from new. They're trying to flip this formula because it's getting boring. Every formula's been the same for years at this point. This is the protagonist because we show him first, and this is his story. Is why I think Cobra Kai is going to go the opposite and prove to you that Robby is going to be the next Karate Kid, because he's got the most character, he's got the most development, he's one of the main focuses on this season going forward, and it's not because he's becoming the villain. It's simply because he's doing what he thinks is the right thing to do within this situation. So to him, in his eyes, everybody's turned his back on him. They're trying to go against him now, and they're going to combine their fighting styles. So Robby goes, well, I need to be smart enough to be able to fight back against this, but I know my other fellow teammates are not going to have these skills, so they might get bested by these techniques. So I'm going to teach them. Not because I'm doing a dishonorable thing or to do something horrible. He's doing it as a good thing. You might not see it as good because it's shown to be a thing that could be bad, but he's doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it to protect and make sure his team win. He's caring about the people on his team, which he's been shown to do with people like Dimitri. And that's what I love about Robby's character. He's so misunderstood because the whole world is telling him he's bad, so he's acting bad, but he's also the smartest character of all of them, because in that trailer, the most realistic thing you could have ever heard a character say is what Robby says to Daniel when they're in the shop. Everybody thinks their way's the only way. You, my dad, Cobra Kai, the truth is, it doesn't matter what way you fight, as long as it works. And that's the point. Robby isn't evil. He's showing to still care about people. You see him caring about Tori. You see him caring about Kenny, the new character that you see he's taken care of, and he shows up to Kenny's house with his back. He clearly still cares about humans, but he's caring about the people that seem to care about him, because Tori clearly cares for him. And so will Kenny when Kenny gets introduced, because Kenny doesn't have anyone helping him, and Robby's the one to do so. And that's the thing that I hate about the fact that people see Robby the way they do. Robby has been shown to be the best and nicest character out of all of them. Miguel has had a better upbringing than Robby. It's expected for him to be good. He's became a Mary Sue in my eyes. As much as I like Miguel's character, he struggles, but he doesn't struggle all the time. Like 9 times out of 10, he's got it pretty good. And he still acts like a douche to certain people for no apparent reason. Where Robby's never had anyone to guide him other than Daniel. And even at that, Daniel throws him aside all the time. And that's what breaks his heart. And when you go through those sort of things, it doesn't matter how much you think you're emotionally mature or how much mature you think you are. He's a teenager. He's not going to see it that way. No one does. And that's what really annoys me, is that fully grown adults are expecting something bad to happen to a teenager because they believe it's the right thing, because they're justifying something so wrong because he's done wrong decisions. 2 wrongs do not make a right. We get told this. We get taught this from a very young age. And it's a thing that I see wrong within the world, especially nowadays, is that has went out the window. It's now that if you are bad, you're bad, and that's it. There is no way of redeeming yourself. There is no other perspective. There is no other side. It's you're playing the victim. Oh, people go through tough stuff. No one's went through anything as bad as Robby within this show up until this point. Daniel struggled with being poor and Johnny bullying him. Miguel struggling for money and bullied. It's similar to Daniel, yes, but people forget Johnny is the main character of the show. Johnny and Robby's arc is more important than Daniel and Miguel, or Miguel and Johnny. Miguel is teaching Johnny how to be the right way for Robby, and that's what they're setting it up as, and no one notices it. And the reason why I truly believe that Robby is going to be the next Karate Kid is because it's the least expected thing to happen, because the showrunners are that good at showing people how wrong they are with their judgments. It's showing that anybody could be redeemed. God, Chris is an asshole, but he's still shown to care. He's still shown that he could be redeemed, potentially at some point. Even Tori, as much as people think she's a psycho, she's showing that she could be redeemed. And for the final topic of this video, is I'm going to talk about Tori and Robby's relationship dynamic, because I really think a lot of people read this situation completely fucking wrong, and it really annoys me. Is that they go, Robby and Tori are going to be toxic. It's going to be one of those relationships that doesn't last. Which is a false statement in itself, because if you actually watch watch shows or TV or movies or whatever, they're a slow burn couple. Unlike Robby and Sam, they got together quite quick. Tori and Robby didn't like each other before season 3. They didn't even have mutual respect. But once they start to understand one another and get to know each other, they respect each other, and they're the perfect person for what the other one needs as a person. Robby and Tori are never going to ditch each other. They're not going to leave each other's side because they know how it feels. Everybody in their life has left them to fend on their own. So they're going to stick together like a power couple. They're going to be badass as hell. And people seem to think like Tori's going to be a bad influence on Robby because she's the one that, helped get him on Creasy's side. She didn't. She was telling Robby her truth, her side of her story that shows that Creasy helped her, and she is going to stick by him because of that. And that's what Robby's ultimately searching for, is loyalty, respect, and someone who cares about him, because his whole life no one did. Some people grow out of that and realize that they can care for themselves and they would rather just do it on their own. Robby wants people. It's shown on multiple occasions. He wants Daniel to be there. He wants Sam to be there. He wants Johnny to be there. But in more cases than shown, they've let him down and they've hurt him. So he's going to stick loyal to those people that are showing that they care. And that's what I think people are getting wrong with Tori and Robby's relationship. They think that it's not going to last. I truly believe that they're going to last. But the whole point of their relationship is to show people that Tori isn't bad. Is to show the other side of her. We know that we're going to get to see more of her family because they confirmed it on it. Yes, everybody's argument to this also is that, but one of their head writers is a Tori and Miguel shipper, because they seem to like that relationship, even though that was a toxic as hell relationship, just the same as Robby and Sam's. Sam constantly belittled Robby and made him feel like shit and done horrible things. And obviously Robby kept one secret, and that apparently trumps everything Sam's ever done. And it's the same with Tori and Miguel. Miguel, on multiple occasions, is meant to be in care and love for Tori. And yes, he calls her out on the bad things she does. But he's not doing it from an understanding perspective. He's doing it from a judgmental standpoint. And if anybody comes at you, even in real life, with a judgmental thing like that, even if you are in the wrong, you're not going to listen, because they're showing you that they're being judgmental instead of trying to understand it and explain it to you in the correct way. Where Robby has been shown within that trailer, that last part is very vital to a lot of these characters. He's shown that he's the most logical and mature thinking. He knows that there is no right way. There's only a way that works. And that is a thing that I think will play vital into Tori and Robby's story, is that everyone thinks that Tori is going to make him even more evil. I believe Robby's going to make Tori better, because Tori needs someone like Robby in her life that understands and won't judge her for what she's done, but will come to her with an understanding of what she's done and why she's done it, and explain how it's wrong and why he understands. And he's been in a similar situation, like how when it came to the whole Miguel situation, because there was a lot of trailer stuff where Tori was on top of Robby, they're like, oh, who's going to be the top student? Robby's the top student. Like, it's known. He's going to be the top student. And people seem to think that because Tori is going to hit Robby in a lot of these promo pictures or in the trailers, is that she hasn't forgiven him yet. You're reading the images and everything on that wrong. It's showing that she's hesitant. She's got anger in her face. But the pause between her going to hit Robby and her face explains, when you look at the photo of Robby, like those photos, and you look at Robby in those photos, he's not got fear in his face. He's not scared of her hurting him. He's showing that he trusts her, that even though she's getting told to finish it, he can see she's struggling because she clearly cares for him and doesn't want to hurt Robby now. And that's why I think a lot of people have also read the, like that teaser photo where it's like, will they stick beside Creasy? They're going to stick beside Creasy. But I think what people are not putting together, Robby is going to be getting put through so much pain under the teaching of Silver. Like, I mean, brutal amount of pain. We've been told this, and it's been confirmed on Twitter as well. Imagine how horrific it must be for Tori to watch him go through that. So, of course, she's going to... This is why I genuinely believe they're going to be a good couple. she's going to start to care for Robby, and they're obviously going to get together. And you never know. Robby might help her with her family, or help her get some money, or help, with her little brother and things. We don't know yet. We've not got that part of the story, but that is a possibility. And so they obviously grow close and become a couple. And then she has to watch the person she's starting to fall for, in so much pain, and that will cause her conflict. That will cause her the so-called redemption arc that they seem to be thrown about for everyone now, because Hawk had one. That is what I believe is going to start to make Tori rethink her life, because Robby's showing her all these positive and different ways of doing things and becoming a more mature and level-headed person instead of just being full brunt attack. And that's why I think Robby's going to be so much more positive for Tori, and how Tori's ultimate start to disbelief crease. They're still going to fight for him in this season, but I think they're setting up for season 5, season 6 for the redemption of Tori and Robby together, because she's going to see that Robby's getting put through hell and pain, and it's going to start to hurt her, because it's shown that she cares for people. She's been shown to care for Miguel. She's been shown to care for her family. And if Robby helped her with her family, and there's meant to be a horrible a death within this season, and it was before Sid's actor passed away, it could be Tori's mother, and it might be the catalyst for the Robby-Tori relationship. That Robby was the only one there for her and could understand what it was like for her, and he is now getting put through a horrible amount of pain, and that will snap her back and be like, yo, no, this is wrong. And then eventually they'll go on to redeem themselves. We don't have a Scooby-Doo how this is going to work. But I truly believe that the writers shouldn't just go back to Tori and Miguel, because I know that one of them does ship them, but I don't agree with that pairing, because Miguel is never going to understand Tori. He's never going to care for her the way she needs. Robby will. He does. And he wants to be the best thing for anyone that he comes in contact with. He tries his best to be the better person no matter what, even though everyone else sees him as something bad. And then eventually, a few times, especially through the seasons, he's given in. But if you get told the same thing over and over and over again, it's scientifically proven that you're going to do that. And that is why I think the best way to sum up Robby's arc so far is legit the definition of the Joker's most iconic saying. All it takes is one bad day. This is why I know Robby's a better person and a better character than most of the people in this show. They have one bad day and they write everyone off. They kick them to the curb and they get angry and they just go their separate ways for a bit, and then eventually they realize they're wrong and then they come together. Robby, every single day of his life, from the minute he was born, has had a bad day. He'd done bad things, but then he tried to better himself. And no matter how much he bettered himself, no one cared. They just seen it as him trying to be something he's not. Even fans say he's trying to force himself to be something he clearly isn't. He is a good person. He is an understandable character. These are the characters that grow up to be well-adjusted adults, because they know the real struggle of it all is that having someone, whilst you're in a very vulnerable and unpredictable environment, telling you you're going to be this way forever. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. This is you now. You are who they hate. That is fucking heartbreaking for any child or teenager to go through. And it could, in a lot of cases, it ends up making them screwed up adults. Robby is being shown to be a better person overall than all of the characters. He's more closer to Miyagi than Daniel is, because he understands there's more than one perspective. He also knows it's all, he's not, right now he's fighting with anger and fighting against his dad and his, so-called other dad, because of what he's trying to teach them is a lesson for how they've been treating and acting around him. And yes, you can put the argument out there, but they've tried. Yes, but as I said earlier, do or do not. There is no try. Kreese does. As much as he's a fucked up character, he does the things he says he's going to do. Daniel and Johnny, on multiple occasions, have shown that they might or they might not. And that's the whole conflict. And I know a lot of people will be like, you never mentioned Hawk. The reason why I don't mention Hawk is because I like Hawk's character, but I hate the fact that everybody loves him. Like, he's been seen as this badass, redeemable character for years. He's probably the worst. He's done so much more horrible shit than Robby ever has. And he's done it on purpose, like breaking Dimitri's arm. He's went out of his way to hurt people he used to be friends with because of an alliance. And people say it shows good loyalty until the one person he's actually loyal to changes, and that's when he changes. And that's what annoys me. Hawk has been a horrible asshole, and he gets nae flack. He does not even get the slightest of he's an asshole. They go, oh, he's misguided. Oh, it's Crease. Oh, Hawk's a good person. He was a geek. Because of that, I know that that's why they're trying to teach a different perspective, because everybody believes this stupid lie that we've been told for years. Is the first impression is the most important. No, it's not. Because you're never going to know someone properly with the first impression. It's just the time you first meet them, the first time you interact. And if they don't react in a way you like, that means you're automatically going to dislike them. So you're going in there with a bias already. So you're not going to see the person behind why they act that way. And that's what I'm saying. For the first time we see Miguel, he's a geek just like Eli, and they become badasses, and so that's relatable to people, which also is really unrealistic. Then you see Robby, and because he's showing from the point of view straight away of the fact and the character, he's a bad, troubled kid. He has nothing, but he plays the victim all the time. You automatically have a bias towards him, and that's the whole point of the show. It's to show you that you're being very judgmental and biased towards characters you don't understand. Miguel does horrible things. Hawk does horrible things. They get away scot-free because there's times where they've been good. Robby has been good more times than he's been bad in the show, and he's still prosecuted as a bad person. And no one lets him grow from it. And that's what ultimately is wrong with society. And that's what I think that a show like this is trying to teach people, is that you're so horrible to one another simply due to the fact of a first impression or of a way of life you don't understand or know what it's like to go through. And that's why I think Cobra Kai is such an important show and such a great show, is it's trying to show you that you're wrong with your judgments. Because Robby is a character that is one character that will never ever be seen the way that he truly is, because he has to put on this front to protect and survive himself when no one else is there with him. And that's the sad truth within Robby's story. But anyway, this has been Cobra Kai High, and I hope to do a few more videos. But until then, I hope you enjoyed, and Cobra Kai never dies.